What if missing something small led you to everything you've ever been waiting for? The morning started wrong from the moment Claire opened her eyes. Her alarm hadn't gone off, her hair wouldn't stay in place, and her coffee machine chose that exact day to stop working. She lived in a small apartment on the edge of downtown, the kind where you could hear the neighbor's dog before the sun even came up. Mondays were always rough, but this one felt cursed. She threw on her coat, grabbed her half-empty travel mug, and ran down the street. The city air was cold, sharp enough to sting her cheeks. As she turned the corner, she saw it. The number 42 bus. Her bus. The one she took every single day to work. And just like that, its doors closed, the driver glanced once in the mirror, and it pulled away. She stopped, out of breath, coffee sloshing in her hand, staring helplessly at the red taillights fading down the street. "Missed it," a calm voice said behind her. She turned, slightly annoyed but curious. A man stood a few feet away, holding a sketchbook and a steaming cup of coffee. He wore a navy coat and had a soft, almost apologetic smile. His hair was messy, like he'd run his hands through it too many times that morning. "Yeah," she said, sighing. "Missed it by maybe 10 seconds. He smiled, eyes warm. "Then we're in the same boat, or bus, I guess." Despite her frustration, she laughed. The sound surprised her. It had been a long time since she laughed before 9 a.m. "Guess the city hates us both today." He shrugged lightly. "Or maybe it's saving us from something worse." That line caught her off guard. There was something thoughtful about it, something that made her stop fuming and actually look at him. They stood side by side at the stop, strangers bound by bad timing and cold wind. She glanced at his sketchbook. "You draw?" He nodded. "Architect. Well, trying to be one. I work nearby. That sounds interesting," she said. "I'm just a marketing assistant. Basically, I spend my days convincing people they need stuff they don't." He laughed, and the sound was light, genuine. "Hey, without people like you, people like me wouldn't have clients." For a few moments, the city faded into background noise. The traffic, the chatter, the footsteps. Everything blurred around their small corner of accidental calm. The next bus was 20 minutes away, but neither seemed to care. He told her his name was Ethan. She noticed the way he talked, with quiet confidence, the kind that didn't demand attention but still held it. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was just real. They joked about city life, missed alarms, and bad coffee. Claire found herself talking more than usual, even sharing that she'd always wanted to write but never had the courage. Ethan listened, really listened, was without interrupting. It was strange how easy it felt to talk to him. After a few minutes, the next bus appeared down the street. Claire felt a small twist in her chest. The 20 minutes had gone faster than any morning she could remember. As the bus came to a stop, Ethan looked at her and said, "Well, maybe we'll see each other again." She smiled faintly. "Maybe. Depends if I miss another one." He grinned. "Then I'll hope for more traffic." She stepped onto the bus, but as the doors started to close, she turned back. He was standing exactly where she'd found him, sketchbook in one hand, that quiet smile still there. She felt something strange in that moment, a pull she couldn't explain. It wasn't love, not yet, but something deeper than coincidence, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, this morning had happened for a reason. She found a seat near the window and watched him shrink into the distance. The city moved past her in flashes. Streets, faces, buildings. But her mind stayed on the man at the bus stop. For a moment, she wondered what his story was. Why he carried that sketchbook everywhere. Why he'd said the city might be saving them from something worse. When she reached work, she was late, as expected. Mr. Fields gave her the usual look, a mix of irritation and disinterest. But for once, she didn't care. Her mind wasn't in the office. It was back at that cold bus stop, with that strange, calm voice that had somehow warmed her morning. She tried to shake it off, but the thought returned throughout the day. What were the odds of running into him again in a city of millions? Almost none, she told herself. People cross paths every day and never meet twice. That's just life. But that night, as she got ready for bed, she found herself checking the bus schedule for the next morning. Same time, same stop. What if he was there again? The thought made her heart beat a little faster, and she almost laughed at herself for hoping. But still, she set her alarm 15 minutes earlier. The next morning came gray and quiet. Claire left early, clutching her coffee tighter than usual. She reached the stop 10 minutes before the bus. Empty. She waited, pretending not to care, scrolling through her phone. The bus arrived. Still no sign of him. She stepped inside, disappointed by how empty it felt. Maybe it really had been just a random meeting. But just as the bus pulled away, she caught something in the reflection of the glass. A familiar face turning the corner. Sketchbook in hand, running toward the stop. Her breath caught. She wanted to call out, but it was too late. He missed it. Again. And this time, she was the one on the other side of the glass, watching him fade into the distance, exactly the way he had watched her the day before. She didn't know it yet. But that moment would come back to her in ways she could never have imagined. Because sometimes, fate doesn't knock once. It keeps circling the same street until you finally open the door. Do we meet people by accident? Or because we're meant to? 3 days had passed since Claire last saw Ethan. She told herself it didn't matter. He was just a stranger, someone she'd spoken to for 20 minutes at a bus stop. Yet somehow her thoughts kept drifting back to him, his calm voice, his sketchbook, that smile that felt like sunlight on a cold day. It was Thursday afternoon when it happened. Claire was walking back from lunch, scrolling through her phone, barely noticing the people around her. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw him. Through a cafe window, the same messy hair, the same sketchbook, the same quiet focus. Ethan. She froze, heart racing for reasons she couldn't quite explain. Should she go in? Would that seem strange? Before she could think it through, her feet were already moving. The bell above the door chimed softly as she stepped inside. He looked up, surprised. Then his face broke into a warm, familiar smile. "Claire," he said, as if her name had been waiting on his lips. She laughed nervously. "Wow, you remembered." "Of course," he said. "You were the one who missed the bus with me." They sat down together. The conversation flowed easier than it should have between two people who barely knew each other. He asked about her job, and she told him how advertising wasn't her dream but paid the rent. He talked about architecture, how he wanted to design spaces that made people feel. There was a stillness in his words that drew her in, like he lived life slower than everyone else. Hours slipped by unnoticed. When she finally checked her watch, she realized she was late. Again. But this time, she didn't care. As they stood to leave, Ethan reached into his sketchbook and tore out a small page. "Here," he said, handing it to her. She unfolded it. It was a sketch of a bus stop, their bus stop, drawn in soft pencil lines. Underneath, he'd written a single sentence. "Sometimes the wrong bus leads to the right person." For a moment, she couldn't speak. The world felt quieter. The sound of coffee machines and street noise faded until there was only that one line echoing in her chest. She looked up, wanting to say something, anything. But he was already stepping outside, blending into the passing crowd. She hurried to the window, watching him disappear down the street, his sketchbook under his arm. The folded paper trembled slightly in her hand. She smiled, but it wasn't joy. It was something deeper, almost uncertain, because she didn't know if she'd just met someone unforgettable, or someone she was about to lose before she even got to know him. What hurts more, losing someone, or realizing you never really had them? Winter arrived quietly, bringing short days and long nights. The bus stop, once the start of something exciting, now felt like a memory wrapped in cold air. Claire and Ethan had grown close over the past weeks. Coffee breaks became their routine, their laughter soft against the city noise. They talked about dreams, failures, and the kind of things people usually keep hidden. But something was changing, something she couldn't name. Ethan started missing calls. His texts came slower, shorter. The spaces between his words felt wider than before. Claire told herself he was busy. Architects worked long hours. But deep down, She knew that wasn't all. He looked distracted, his smile quieter, his eyes far away even when he was sitting right in front of her. One evening, after work, they met by the river. The city lights shimmered on the water, and for the first time, she didn't know what to say. The silence between them was heavy, stretching too long, filled with everything they weren't saying. Finally, she broke it. "Ethan, what's going on? You've been different." He took a long breath, eyes fixed on the dark water. "I didn't mean to let this happen," he said quietly. "I wasn't supposed to stay." Claire frowned. "Stay? What do you mean?" He looked at her then, his voice low, almost guilty. "I got an offer. A big one. Vancouver. It's everything I've worked for." For a moment, she just stood there, her heart trying to keep up with her thoughts. "That's great," she managed to say, forcing a smile. "You should go." He took a step closer. "Claire, But she stopped him with a small shake of her head. "Don't. Please don't make it harder." The air between them turned colder. The wind carried the sound of distant traffic, and for once neither of them tried to fill the silence. She wanted to cry, to ask him to stay, but she couldn't. It wasn't fair. Not to him, not to what they were. He reached for her hand, but she stepped back, blinking fast to hold back the tears. "You'll miss your bus," she said softly. Her words were quiet, but final. She turned and walked away, leaving him by the river, frozen between choice and regret. When she reached the street, she stopped and looked back. But he wasn't there anymore. Only the empty riverbank and the soft hum of the city. That night, Claire lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the sound of the river still echoing in her head. She told herself it was just a chapter ending, but deep inside, something told her this wasn't the end, just the pause before something she didn't yet understand. Because sometimes love doesn't disappear, it just goes silent. Can a single goodbye rewrite the story you thought was over? Spring came softly, like forgiveness. The snow melted, the trees bloomed, and the city began to breathe again. Claire had learned to fill her days without Ethan. At least that's what she told herself. She went to work, met friends, laughed at small things. But every now and then, when a bus passed or a man in a navy coat walked by, her heart still paused. One evening, sitting alone in her favorite cafe, she opened her laptop. On the screen was her newest article, a story she had written late one night when the memories refused to let her sleep. She titled it, "The Day I Missed My Bus." It wasn't meant to be a love story, but somehow it became one. She wrote about chance, timing, and how sometimes people enter your life only to teach you how to feel again. The piece went viral, small at first, then everywhere. People wrote to her about missed buses, missed chances, and the strangers they couldn't forget. For the first time, Claire felt proud, not just of her words, but of her pain. She'd turned something fleeting into something real. Then one morning, she returned to that same cafe, laptop open, coffee half drunk, when the doorbell above the entrance chimed. She looked up without thinking, and froze. Ethan stood there. He looked the same, maybe a little older, a little tired, but still with that quiet smile she remembered. He walked toward her, uncertain at first, then sure. "I read your story," he said softly. Claire's heart stumbled. "You did?" He nodded. "Every word." He hesitated, then added, "I never told you, but I missed my flight to Vancouver." She blinked. "You what?" He laughed gently, rubbing the back of his neck. "I missed it. Got stuck in traffic. And when I finally got to the airport, it felt wrong. Like I was leaving something I hadn't finished." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The cafe around them blurred into background noise, cups clinking, people talking. But they were somewhere else entirely. Finally, she smiled, shaking her head in disbelief. "You really are bad with transportation." He grinned. "Or maybe I'm just good at missing things that matter." The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was calm, full of something new. They sat together, and this time, it didn't feel like fate pushing them apart. It felt like it had been waiting for the right moment to bring them back. Outside, a bus passed by, the number 42. Claire glanced at it, then back at Ethan. For once, she didn't feel the urge to run after it. Somewhere inside her, she knew. Missing that bus had been the beginning of everything. But as Ethan reached for her hand, neither of them noticed the folded letter still tucked in his pocket. One that could change everything again.